Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
And welcome into Purple Access. Zolgad, Chip Scoggins, Declan Goff, as always, presented, as you just heard, by our friends at Surly Brewing Company. Don't forget our draft party. We'll talk about that in a second. Coming up a week from today, as we record this Thursday for the first round of the draft, and also by our friends at TCL TV. A perfect place to watch the draft. If you can't be at Surly, it's on a TCL television. Chip Scoggins, certainly some draft talk, but I want to start you off with your thoughts on this. And no, I'm not going to have the hot take that the Vikings should move heaven and earth to acquire Deebo Samuel from San Francisco. What I'm going to ask you about is, with all of the movement of receivers in recent months, Devontae Adams goes to the Raiders. Tyreek Hill, I think surprisingly, traded from the Chiefs to the Dolphins. And now Deebo, who's going into the last year of his contract, demanding, trying to get out of San Fran. Here's my question for you. Do you expect this to become an issue with Justin Jefferson, who is going into the third year of his rookie contract, not eligible for an extension yet, but he is, I believe, a year from this May, and that will be going into year 4. The Vikings technically have him through the fifth-year option. But all of that being said, what's your assessment? Because we are certainly seeing a lot of bobbing and weaving from a position at which the Vikings have at least one really good player.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know that we can draw a straight line correlation with all of them. Obviously, Devontae, that situation in Green Bay with salary cap being what it is and money, that's one thing. Tyreek Hill, was that, I think that was a money thing too. And when you have so much,
well, that's,
with Mahomes, when you have so much tied up with Mahomes, it's there's only, this is the issue when you have a quarterback that makes so much money. Obviously, Deebo Samuel, I think, is a different situation there probably, but he's going to want to get paid. But will it affect Jefferson or influence, his situation here? I don't know. I don't, as I sit here today, I would say I wouldn't push any alarm button or anything like that. Because I don't think paying him the going rate for what he's going to get a year from now, or 16 months from now when they lock him up. Because I don't think that Cousins is going to be here when that kicks in. Do you? I mean, I think
my guess is no.
My guess. I think this is a 2-year bridge until you get to a rookie quarterback or someone cheaper. So I don't think it's going to be one of those situations where it's either or. Hey, we can't afford a quarterback and Justin Jefferson.
Right.
Now, would he get, if they don't make the playoffs this year, is he going to get antsy to, find a situation where he has a better chance to be in the playoffs annually? Mm-hmm. I can't sit here and say he wouldn't, but I don't know that what we saw this offseason is going to be a trend that continues for the next however many years.
There are so many interesting tentacles too here to go down. And one path is this. Spielman especially, in his years working for the Wilfs, first with Brad and then with Frazier and then ultimately with Mike. Chip, we covered this. That club had a very, very set plan of, we are going to reward our stars. And they did a good job. And sometimes contracts were great. Sometimes they might not have been, but it was a consistent plan. And it felt like they rewarded their stars in a fair way, especially at first, based on the fact that they were stars, not positionally. Like, it didn't seem like they discriminated against running backs or safeties or something. So I guess the first tentacle I'd be curious about, and I know my own response, but I don't know theirs now, starting with Kwesi, is Will they look at a receiver who wants to break the bank and say, absolutely yes? Or will they have a bit of a different view? Now, personally, I would keep him, but that's me personally.
Yeah, I don't think you have to recognize special talent.
I agree.
And I don't think you can say, well, we'll just put anybody in Kevin O'Connell's system and they're going to be productive. That is a dangerous game to play, right? You might be right, but you could definitely be absolutely wrong. And I just think Jefferson is such a special player that I would put him in a category of you have to do whatever it takes to keep him because he's your best player. He's your most popular player. He seems like I think as he kind of grows more in the league, he's going to be that leader that you always talk about that grabs guys by the shoulders and say, let's go. You know, like he's going to walk in the locker room and command respect, and people are going to listen to him, I think. He has that kind of magnetic personality, right? Where I think we talked about it last week or a couple weeks ago. His personality strikes you as the same as Anthony Edwards, just his presence. And so this is not one of those situations where they're like, you know what, he's too expensive. We'll draft some guy and we'll get maybe not the same production, but a little bit, because I think his impact goes beyond that.
Here's the second point too, then, that will be really fun to watch. And I don't know how it plays out, but I tend to agree with you on Kirk. I think and I might be wrong again, who knows? Yeah. I think Kirk is in his last contract here. The keywords being I think that. I have no idea what they think. What's interesting about this, and I think there can be a parallel drawn to what's going on with Deebo probably in San Fran right now, is this one. So the Vikings are clearly, right or wrong, putting all of their chips in. We think that we can win now. We're going to pay Kirk. We think that we can turn Kirk into a guy that can consistently perform. How's that? And play well. Now, what's interesting is I think part of Deebo's issues in San Fran have nothing to do with the finances, because I think that they could pay him. I think it has to do with two things. One is his usage is going to eat up his career quickly because he's playing two tough spots, not one. Yeah, which Jefferson does not have to concern himself with, clearly.
Which also makes him a special player too. I think that's
100%.
You know,
100%.
Maybe he looks at, but I think that's the fact that he's so versatile and can do those things, I think makes him unique. But yeah, sorry, Deanna.
I agree, and I think he thinks I can be a star receiver. The second thing though ties into Jefferson directly, and it's this. I think one of the frustrations that Samuel might have is San Fran is going to transition from Garoppolo, who I don't think is great, but he's a known commodity, to Trey Lance, who could be great, but we don't know. And I think in Samuel's mind, he thinks, do I want to transition and go with a young quarterback who I have seen in practice, but I don't know? And I wonder, Chip, if Jefferson would get to a point where he thinks if Kirk is gone and Kirk is good, but we're going to draft a guy, I don't want to be involved in that type of transition. I'm throwing out the variables that could become talking points.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that's a conversation that they have ongoing with him and his agent as they start talking about the quarterback situation. Because I think he is of that stature where you don't necessarily have to, tell him everything you're doing and who you're going to select and all that. But I think you have to be upfront and say, hey, at least after this year, Cousins has 1 year left. Whatever they're planning to do, if they're going to, draft a guy, blah, blah, blah. I think you have to sell him on the fact that whoever that quarterback is, they're going to surround him with good coaching, O'Connell, a good system, good players, and that whoever the guy is, Justin Jefferson is going to be the focal point. So no matter who's throwing the ball, he's going to get a lot of receptions. And so, just being a little bit we're around Jefferson, he seems like the ultimate competitor that I don't care who's throwing the ball, I'm going to make a play,
Yes.
I don't know that he would let that be oh my gosh, we have a young quarterback. He's not as experienced as Cousins. I want out of here. I guess I would be surprised if he thought that way, because he seems like he feels like he's going to win no matter what, the situation is, or the circumstances around him. So that part, but I could see it with Deebo, that with where he's at in his career, and like, do I want to go through the growing pains of a rookie quarterback who we don't, and he may, haven't been with him in practice for a year, he may say this guy can't play,
and that could be a problem too. Look,
Yeah.
like if you see a guy and you're like, oh my God, this guy really can't play. I really don't want to be there. Yeah. It's just become a position. This used to be a position that I thought, Chip, that you could find guys. And look, there were some great ones, but it felt like, Stephon Diggs, 5th round. Yeah. It feels more and more right now like there is a premium being put on that position that was not, I think the fairest thing to say is it was not consistently there before the last, 2 or 3 years. It's really taken off.
Yeah. And I think there is still that possibility that you can find an Adam Thielen. If you can find a guy who, just give them a chance, and if they work hard and develop themselves into a player, maybe they'll uncover that with KJ Osborne, a guy who, if you give him a chance and he works hard, he turns himself into a pretty darn good receiver. But I think there's a select few guys that are in a whole different ball game category when you start talking about Jefferson and those guys. I mean, Devontae Adams, the best handful of guys. I just think they're so special, and they are so dynamic and make your offense harder. I just don't know that you can replace him with a guy and think, you know what, we'll fill in the gaps around. That's just, I don't think that's the right way to go about it.
The guys that scare you, right? Like those, those are the guys. Which is why you can't say post game, well, they took the guy away. What were we like? There's a handful of guys where you can't say that. You got to keep trying to find ways.
Well, and darn well, every team they face this year, on Monday morning when they start the game plan, how they're going to try to defend the Vikings offense, they're going to start with Jefferson. All right, what do we do with Jefferson? And he's in that kind of category, much like Adrian Peterson was when he was here. Everything was revolved around, what are you going to do to stop Peterson?
That list is whom then? Jefferson 1, Cook 2, do you think?
I would think so, yeah, because he's still explosive, and you can't just say, he's just a guy, I would say, Jefferson, Cook, and Adam Thielen in the red zone,
Right.
And it'll be interesting to see. There's so much more this guy has to prove, but how much Irv Smith kind of gets into that conversation this year in this offense, if he's healthy, if he can have that kind of role where, not saying he's, above those other guys, but he is a guy where you say, okay, this guy's unique, he has kind of unique skill set. We have to figure out something here versus, okay, this guy's a tight end that can catch, a few passes.
Absolutely. So a week from tonight, first round of the draft. Don't forget that Mackey, yours truly, and Declan Goff, and a special guest appearance. Or are you going to have to bail on us?
I think I got it right.
You can write from there.
We're going to pop him off the screen. We're done with Purple Access. We're all done now.
From there. You can write from there. Anyway, we will be at Surly Brew Hall. Doors open at 3. We start at 6 for the first ever Score North / Surly Brewing draft party. A TCL TV will be in play. Someone, I believe, will walk out of there with a TCL TV. We're also collecting donations, Declan, for non-perishable items. So it's going to be for a good cause. And don't forget the very exciting, and I was very excited for Chip to try this, Before I Die brew. Ale is being brewed, especially one night only on tap for this event, Before I Die. In other words, can the Vikings win a Super Bowl before we all die? Right now it's looking, not so great. But anyway, enjoy the beer. Surly Brew Hall draft night. We'll be doing a show that'll start at 6, go until the first round is done. We'll take your questions, pop you on camera, have a mic there. It's basically going to morph into a vent line during the draft as well. So check us out there. Doors open at 3, and we start at 6. Surly Brew Hall next Thursday, and there is no admission charge. What does your spidey sense tell you right now, Chip Scoggins? What do you think the Vikings are going to do with that 12th pick? Because there certainly are lots of options, and I'd say right now, because we got no book on Quasi and Company, I have no idea.
Yeah.
All guesses on my part.
Yeah, I have no idea. And all you guys saying, take a wide receiver. You're trying to throw me off my scent, huh?
That's what I'm trying to
They
do.
got to take a cornerback. Come on. Look at their cornerback situation. They got to take a cornerback. And I know, I think your partner in crime, Phil, is trying to get everybody on the. They need to take a wide receiver and score 1,000 points a game.
Yep.
And I understand. I understand.
Writing something down right. 50 burger. First team to average 50 a game.
Well, here's the thing about that. We've all dumped on Zimmer about how much he was restrictive and held the offense back. So if removing him from the equation and adding OConnell and the offensive staff and everybody assumes that the offense is going to be better just by that, then I don't know why you have to go out and draft a wide receiver in the first round.
I'll tell you why. For the 50 burger. That's why.
Watch him draft like a,
guard.
Cornerback. Yeah, guard.
God.
Is, I guess, to me, I would go corner. I just think that's their biggest position of need. The big question I have is okay, Sauce Gardner is going to be gone at 12. Is Derek Stingley going to be there? Yeah, I look at enough mock drafts at everybody. You have him taken going 9 to Seattle.
Yep.
The fact that he ran fast at his pro day and showed that he's healthy probably didn't help the Vikings.
No.
But if he's there, I take him. Could they? Kyle Hamilton, a safety. Would you do that?
So here's my problem there. The player, I definitely would. Like it sounds like just a great talent.
Yeah.
But these guys are going to be big on positional value, I believe. So are they going to take? Are they going to take a talent at a position that's not seen as a positional value, like cornerback would be?
Yeah, and that's the one where I think they do their analytics come in to, okay, when you start ranking the importance, and heck, even like Zimmer had the thing a couple years ago where he said when they had Anthony Harris, paid him pretty big money to be. And he said, well, safety was not high on the list of the most important positions on defense, and so. It'll be interesting to see if they trade back, and I think we'll all, if that happens, we'll all scream Spielman and Trader Rick and kind of have some fun with that. But sitting at 12, could they trade back and get a Trent McDuffie,
right,
the cornerback from Washington, wherever you have to fall to, another corner who's there? If they did go wide receiver, I think Garrett Wilson, the Ohio State guy, is going to be gone in the top 10 probably. But Chris Olave, who I loved at Ohio State, very talented. I think he would be available. But I think I would just go defense. I mean, I trust that O'Connell's staff, between Jefferson, Thielen, KJ Osborne, whoever, they come up with that they'll have enough receivers and establish some depth there, that I would focus on the defensive secondary and try to shore that area up.
If Stingley is gone, though, by 12, who do you take there?
Yeah, I would. If you don't want to spend that pick on a safety and Kyle Hamilton, I think I probably would look at trading back to see if you could get Trent McDuffie, later in the first round, a few spots later, and pick up, some draft capital that'll help you, that next year. It's dangerous if you say we like that guy and we want a safety or we want a corner. You'd have to figure out who below you might be eyeing a cornerback
right.
too.
Right.
You run the risk of losing out on him too. But yeah, Stingley would be my guy. But I just don't know, is he going to be there still on the board at 12?
And, does it concern you that in college, his first year, he was fantastic?
He's great, yeah.
Absolutely fantastic. And then got hurt and didn't play. Like, how much does the fact that you basically have a 1 year, I think it's now 3 years back sample size, and after that, it sort of dries up?
Yeah, I think I'd just be not so much as how good is he versus are we sure that the health thing is the foot and is everything
right.
healed and not a chronic thing or anything like, the medicals. To me, that would be the only not even hesitation, but just concerned that you would want to make sure you have your hands around. I think everybody can see he can play. I mean, yeah, he doesn't have the full body of work because of the injuries that other guys might have, but I think he's, pretty special talent.
What's your best guess on the quarterbacks?
Well, I think most people think Pickett to Carolina.
I've seen that in mocks. I've seen
Malik Williams too.
Yeah. I've seen him going second at times to Detroit, which, I mean, does need a quarterback, but the question is this draft strong enough at that position to sustain such a high pick on a quarterback? Yeah,
I don't love either one of them enough to, if I was drafting it now, everybody sees guys differently and who would fit their system and obviously need. But could you wait a year? Could you find a bridge to get you to next year if you're one of those teams that,
Well, yeah. I mean,
I think I would be more inclined
Goff
to do
can
that.
keep playing and just stink for you.
Well, that's it. I mean, how much are you willing to sacrifice another year to put yourself in position to when the quarterback draft class is better and deeper?
Yeah.
And I think I would be more inclined to do that than just say, you know what, we're not very good at quarterback. Let's just, try to solve it this year. Unless you're just totally in love with one of those two guys, and maybe they are. I don't get the sense that either one of them rises to that level, though.
And there are certain spots in sports across the board, Chipper, and quarterback is definitely one, and it might be the top one that makes people do stupid things.
Well, yeah. I mean,
like the ponder panic. Oh, we got to take one. Let's just take this one. It makes people who are supposedly intelligent about their job really, really dumb at times.
Well, it is.
Unfortunately for them.
And part of the thing, Judge, just is so darn unpredictable. Who's going to succeed and who's going to fail? And so, it's the most important position in sports. And when you don't have one, you get desperate. And there's no, I don't say there's no rhyme or reason why guys succeed or fail, but it's the biggest crapshoot. And so, yeah, you get crazy when you don't have one. So, and you get envious and you get restless and you have to get that right. And so that, to me, is why I think this next year is going to be so fascinating with this new regime, because let's be honest, that's a big part of the reason why they're here, because they haven't been able to solve that with this organization for a long time. And so, they've got to have a plan to figure out, one, how do you identify it? Two, how do you be in position to identify, to get the guy that you want, which is, that might be just as hard, right? To be able to maneuver.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, and I think what's intriguing about this entire thing is it's very clear now as this plays out before us. 2022 is going to be a referendum on Zim. Like, this is going to be, he was such 100%. A bad coach. He lost the locker room. He couldn't coach Cousins. He was terrible, which is probably not entirely true at all. But if that doesn't work, 2023 is going to be the referendum on Spielman, because that's like right now they're keeping his team together, like to a point where I've said I'm surprised he got fired because they kept his team together. But if it doesn't work to perfection or damn near close to being really good in 22, 23 is going to be all about, we had to replace Rick's guys, because they're going to have enough time to pivot and make that PR change and say, in retrospect, it's really all Rick's fault.
Yeah, and they'll just say, we didn't want to rush. Yep. We didn't want to rush into personnel decisions, just get rid of everybody, 3 months after taking the job. And I'll understand that to some degree, because you want to kind of, at Kevin O'Connell's press conference yesterday or whatever it was. And he even said, like, it's a clean slate with these guys. Cause he's like, Kellen Mond, I've never seen him play. I have no idea. He hasn't been on the practice field. I don't know really anything about it. And he said, a lot of these guys is a clean slate because they don't know anything about him. They haven't seen him practice. Right. They haven't seen him play. And so I do think there is some of that, just like, hey, see what you got before you totally dismantle and tear it down.
I would think, though, in fairness, Chipper, that Kevin O'Connell's been coaching a long enough time where if he watches the practice film of Mond, he probably has ideas, though, right?
Well, yeah, and he talked about when he was coming out. I mean, these coaches all evaluate every quarterback, right? He was the quarterback's
Right.
coach, so he said he was like 20, 25 quarterbacks. So he evaluated him on film during the draft process, and so he has a good handle on him, what he was in college, and whether that translates to the NFL. He's not going to come out and tell us that, at a press conference. But
I think he's terrible.
Yeah, but not so much a clean slate for him, but I think some of the rookie class last year, defensive guys or whatever that you never played that you don't know. But I think he does. I mean, in fairness, even if you evaluate a guy in college, you still want to see him in practice and before you make the ultimate determinations like, hey, yes or no, thumbs up or thumbs down. He's not going to fit what we're doing. So, I do think he's probably coming in with a little bit of open mind on everyone. I mean, sure, you're going to have preconceived ideas about who's good, who's not, who's going to fit, who's not, but you have to at least give him a chance to see what it looks like when you're practicing.
What did you think was the most intriguing thing that you heard from O'Connell at that presser a couple of days ago?
Well, I asked him, and not to say because my question, because a lot of
go right ahead.
But we get into. I mean, the Kirk stuff. That he said that this because the coaches can't be there. We can talk about that this is basically a time for Cousins to kind of take charge and other leaders to I know Phil kind of has some Twitter fun with the sitting front and center in meetings. But
He's very negative.
Yeah. but I do think this is probably his Cousins' time to really kind of be a leader, and as much as he, if he wasn't doing this before, I would assume he was in the offseason previous because coaches can't, the previous coaches couldn't be there either. But just, digesting it was interesting. He said, O'Connell said, this is kind of the stress-free part of, there's no pressure, just kind of learn the, the playbook, what they're, asking each guy to do. Irv Smith, he's feeling better. They're kind of easing him along a little bit, but he seems optimistic about him. But I asked him about, because I'm curious. I have this column idea that I'm going to do, but I asked him about the game management coordinator. I said, this is a new term kind of in football, and we've all been kind of saying for a couple of years, they should have game management. And he said, absolutely, it's been on his mind, and it's something that he kept using the word clarity. They're going to go over, they have this, I forgot what the heck he called it, but basically a session every week where they're going to show the team 5 to 10 situations that happen in games. Hey, 2-minute timeout or 2-minute warning, 2-minute drive here. Do you kick it? Do you go for it? Blah, blah, blah. All these different situations. And they're going to go through them and say, how would we handle that situation with us? So that they're prepared. At the end of the day, he's going to have to make a snap decision, right? Pressure's on. He said it. He even stole, I think, the idea that you had that have people be able to listen in on the headphones on the sidelines. He said it is kind of chaotic, all the voices you're hearing and different things. He said people would love to hear the stuff that's said on there. He said so there's a lot of noise and a lot of frenzy, and he said in some ways it can feel chaotic, but he wants to have almost like a set core of principles, like we're going for it all the time here. We're doing this in this situation, whatever. So, and the game management coordinator, I think, is going to be Ryan. I forgot his last name. I apologize, but going to have a lot of analytics behind that. Like, hey, you have to go for it in these situations. 4th down on the opponent's 45 or whatever. You have to go for these, and so I think it's going to be a constant dialogue and a lot of data with it. But I hope he's aggressive in those situations, and I'm guessing he probably will be, right? Just because
there's probably a happy place between being aggressive and being like Staley was with the Chargers, which was aggressive to a fault at times. But yes, I would probably, if I had a choice, I would prefer the person be aggressive.
And it was such an issue with Zimmer over his career, especially the last couple of years, where it just, you felt like there was no rhyme or reason sometimes with what they were,
It was emotional a lot of times.
Yeah. And so I do
like
think
his challenges.
Yeah. And so, it can't hurt to have one of these, a game management course, somebody who's thinking about it all the time and has data. But he kept saying it might be a little bit chaotic in the headphones or whatever, but it will never be that way with our players. They're going to have clarity, and we're going to rehearse these situations and talk about them to where when we get in those situations, it's not going to be like, oh my God, what are we doing? We're panicking, So I think that probably was is good to hear, but it's always probably tougher to execute when you're
That's what I
on
was
game
going
day.
to say.
And it's like it's really, going chaotic down there.
It's simple to say, hey, there's going to be clarity. It's going to be very calm. And then game day comes and it's like, oh my God, what's going on? People are panicking and coaches
They're
panicking.
they're booing.
You know what? Exhibit A, 2009 NFC Championship game, Superdome. That part of the problem, 12 men in the huddle was chaos. Chaos was allowed to creep in, and chaos is not the friend of good planning. All right, Chip Scoggins, we will see you soon, and, try to get off work, okay?
I know.
So you can join us.
I'll tell him I can't ride. I got to go drink with my boys.
Just tell him you're going to sip a couple beers and right from there. I find it to be very relaxing. All right. See you next week. Bye.